Hello and welcome to this session. This is Professor Farhat, in which we will discuss the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002, known as SOC. First, we need to know the naming, Sarbanes-Oxley. Why is it called Sarbanes-Oxley? Well, it's the two senators that sponsored the bill, Paul Sarbanes and Michael Oxley. Two is the year 2002. Specifically, why 2002? Well, because in 2002, we had several major corporate scandals. To name two, Enron and WorldCom. So the Congress says, well, guess what? We are going to do something about this, and we are going to create a law that does few things. Improve the accuracy and reliability of financial reporting. Help restore investor confidence. Why? Because people lost confidence in the stock market. Strengthen corporate governance and audit oversight. So the rule was designed to address what these companies, Enron and WorldCom, committed in fraud during that period. Again, Enron and WorldCom are two of the major companies that were uncovered. You have other companies, Tyco, as well as other companies, but those are the majors one, Enron and WorldCom. So that's the purpose of the act, is to help companies run their business better in terms of governance. So when we say governance, what do we mean by corporate governance? Corporate governance means who's in charge of the company? The board of directors, the CEO, the CFO, senior management, senior executives. The way they run the company, they have to have certain rules, checks and balances. So this law, it strengthened those rules. It made it more mandatory. These rules are not overlooked. And it strengthened audit oversight. Now the auditor are being overlooked by a new board that this law created. It's called the PCAOB. We'll talk about it. But specifically, if you want to, the key insight that we want to know from this lesson is it significantly increased the responsibility of auditors. And this is what we will discuss in this session, because this session is designed how the act affected the auditors, because the auditors were involved. Enron had auditors, WorldCom had auditors, specifically Arthur Andersen. They no longer exist. But the point is, the rules change when it comes to auditors. And in this session, we'll focus on that, the impact of Sarbanes-Oxley on auditors. And we need to discuss also the impact of Sarbanes-Oxley on the company as well, because it also affected the corporate governance. Let's go ahead and get started talking about the impact on auditors. Before we proceed any further, I have a public announcement about my company, FarhatLectures.com. Most students and CPA candidates struggle not because audit is too hard, but because it's taught fast and the logic behind the procedure isn't explained clearly. Then everything feels disconnected. At Farhat Lectures, we break audit down step by step. We explain the why behind the standards, the logic behind the assertions, risks, procedures, evidence, so the whole process finally clicks. When the concepts connect, audit becomes clear and manageable. You stop memorizing and start understanding. Ready for auditing to make sense? Start your free trial at farhatlectures.com. The first thing I want to discuss is something called the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, and that's one of the major impact on auditors. Well, the Act established this board. It's basically an organization. It's an embedded organization to oversee, to overlook who the auditors, basically who audit the auditors, kind of who look over the auditors, because the auditor look over other people. This board, PCAOB. It's composed of 5 members, 2 of them CPAs and 3 must be non-CPAs, and it's overseen by the Securities and Exchange Commission, because obviously the SEC is involved in what? It's involved in public companies. The responsibilities for the PCAOB is registering audit firms that audit public companies. So if you are a CPA firm and you want to audit a public company, you have to register with this board. You have to have registration with them. It means register. They allow you to do it. They give you the okay. Then if they give you the okay, they are going to overlook. They are going to oversee what you do. Setting auditing and professional standard. They can set audit and professional standard. And most importantly, as I mentioned, inspecting audit firms. Audit the auditors. Think of it this way. And if they find something that doesn't meet the proper quality control, you will be investigated and disciplined. So basically, simply put, they are coming after you. Do your job properly, otherwise you'll be penalized, investigated, and disciplined. Now, the inspection. How often do they do the inspection? Who's subject to inspection? So on and so forth. This is highly tested topic. So how does the PCAOB inspection affect the auditor? Firms auditing more than 100 issuers are inspected annually. What does that mean? If you have 100 publicly traded companies as your customers, the PCAOB will inspect you annually. If you audit less than 100 companies, then you're inspected at least every 3 years. And hopefully this makes sense. The more work you do, the more often they have to look over your shoulders. For example, a large audit firm auditing 200 public companies will be reviewed every year by the PCAOB. Why? It's more than 100. Registration requirement. Only registered with the PCAOB can audit a public company. We already mentioned this. Registration means you declare to them that I am auditing publicly traded company, and there you go. Now you are under our inspection. Annual registration include client audited and fees earned. Who are your clients? How much they're paying you? Quality control policies. How are you making sure you're doing your work properly? Do you have quality control procedures? And we will have several lessons about quality control. List of audit personnel, legal or any disciplinary issues, any disagreement with the clients. You have to include that. If a firm is not registered, simply put, you cannot audit a publicly traded company. And that's important. Why? Because publicly traded companies, they're large companies, the fee is large, and if you want to get their business, you have to register with this board. Let's talk about the required auditing standard. Now, registered firms, if you are registered, you must retain your audit documentation for 7 years. And at the beginning, I mentioned Enron as an example where they committed fraud. Now, why this specific policy? You must retain your audit documentation, your email, your paperwork, your communication, your disagreement with the client, so on and so forth, is because what Enron did before once they knew they were caught, they started to shred, simply put, destroy paperwork, delete emails, delete communication. Therefore, now you have to keep audit documentation for 7 years. And that's something you need to know. It could be a simple multiple choice on the exam, 7 years. Obtain a second partner review. This is part of the engagement quality review, and we'll talk about that later. In other words, you're finished with the audit, you give it to another partner to review it. Report on your internal control testing in the audit report. You have to let us know if you tested the internal control and what were the results. Quality control requirement, you must maintain independence from the client. This is crucial because an audit with no independence, it does not have any significance. So you must maintain that independence, and we'll talk about independence in 1 or 2 sessions separately. You have to follow ethical standard. That's like a minimum, right? And you have to properly supervise the audit work. So people that they are doing the work, you cannot blame them. You're responsible for them. You have to supervise them, train them, and the buck stops with the supervisors. Well, the PCAOB, not only they can tell you what to do, they can discipline you, discipline the firm and the people. You could pay penalties for that. So possible sanction is the worst: revocation or suspension of firm registration. And what would happen if they revoke, said you're no longer a member of this board? It means you cannot audit publicly traded companies. What does that mean? Well, it means you are going to be losing business. Do you want that? Absolutely not. You want to comply with the rules. Suspension of individuals, people who are committing that fraud, they might be suspended. Monetary discipline, additional training, censor. And really, you would lose your reputation. And really, that's the most important thing in audit, because as an auditor, you are building trust between the company and the public. And if you cannot be trusted, it's a problem. So if an auditor knowingly issue a misleading audit report, they might be fined and barred from practice. Let's take a look at Title 2, Auditors' Independence. And we talked about, independence is important. It's the bedrock for auditing. Well, SOX introduced strict rules to ensure auditors remain independent. And how do they do that? Well, they will prohibit certain non-audit services. Now, why do they prohibit non-audit services? Because if you remember Enron, we said one of the companies that committed fraud was Enron. Enron was paying their auditors in total $52 million for Arthur Andersen. $27 million, or approximately 27, was for audit work, and $27 million was for consulting work. What does that mean? Well, if you are paying someone $27 million for consulting work, for one thing, what's consulting work? Consulting work means they are looking after your best interests, which is should consultant look after your best interests? Of course they should. That's their job. You hire a consultant, sorry, you would expect that they look after your best interests. That's fine. But the problem is, once you're paying someone $27 million, you might have leverage over them when it comes to audit. Two, if they're giving you consulting, they're providing you advice, and now they're auditing their own advice, they're not going to be very neutral about that because they are auditing their own advice. Therefore, there are certain services that Sarbanes-Oxley prohibit. You cannot provide them if you're providing auditing service, bookkeeping, financial system design, valuation service, actuarial services, internal audit outsourcing, working with their internal audit, managing the company or HR services, investment, advisory or banking services, legal services, other unrelated expert services. So those are things that it's a no-no, you cannot provide them. Now, exception will be, can you prepare their taxes? And the answer is, if approved by the audit committee. Now, who's the audit committee? The audit committee is the committee that hired the auditor. It's basically a subcommittee of the board of directors. So if they approve tax services, then you can prepare their taxes. Otherwise, everything else, simply put, is not allowed. So it's easy to remember what's allowed. Tax services under audit committee approval. So an audit firm cannot prepare both financial statement and audit them, because the rest of this is basically related to preparing. You cannot prepare financial statements. Simply put, the financial statement responsibility is the responsibility of whom? Of the company. So you cannot prepare their financial statements. And as a result, if you prepare it, you cannot audit it. Either or, choose. What else you have to do? Well, we have to have audit partner rotation and audit committee oversight. Lead and reviewing partner must rotate every 5 years. What does that mean? It means the lead partner on the engagement, the person that's in charge of the engagement, and the person that's reviewing the work should not stay in their position for 5 years. They should rotate. Someone else come in with new sets of eyes. So an audit partner cannot stay on the same engagement indefinitely to avoid the familiarity threat. To avoid what? To avoid being friendly to the customer. After 5 years, spending 9 months of the year with management, you might become friendly. So the key is to get you out, bring someone else, new sets of eyes. Now the audit committee must approve all audit services, of course, because that's their job to hire the auditor, and all permitted non-audit services. Mainly when we talked about non-audit services, usually we're looking at tax. Require auditor's communication. The auditor must communicate critical accounting policies to the audit committee, any alternative accounting treatment. In other words, they should let the audit committee, look, no, this is what the company is doing, but we want to let you know there's another alternative acceptable position, so you are aware of that. Any significant communication with management, whatever the auditor spoke to management, any significant communication, it must be communicated. Also, we want to have avoiding conflict of interest. The audit firm cannot audit a company if key executives worked at the firm within the past year. In other words, if that person was working for the audit firm and now work for the company, that's it. We can no longer audit them because it's considered a conflict of interest. We got to give it a year, a cool off period. So this is basically some impact on the auditor. We have to talk about the impact of Sarbanes-Oxley on the company as well. But to remember, the key points to remember here is the PCAOB, their job basically to oversee the public company. Only registered firms can audit. Registered firm with the PCAOB can audit issuers, public companies. The inspection, if you have more than 100 publicly traded companies annually, if you have less, every 3 years, within 3 years. Work paper must be retained for 7 years. That's an easy MCQ. And strict independence rules prohibit many non-audit services. Remember, the only non-audit is tax with the approval of the audit committee. An audit committee plays a central oversight role. Let's take a look at this multiple choice question from farhatlectures.com. An audit firm provides internal audit outsourcing services to its public audit client. Which statement is correct? So if an audit firm does this, which statement is correct? It's permitted if disclosed in the financial statements. So can we provide this service if we're auditing this company, and as long as we disclose it, let everyone know we are doing this, then it's acceptable, because basically everybody knows that. And the answer is no, that's not acceptable. Even if we disclose, that's still not acceptable. Permitted if approved by management. No, management is, they want you to do the internal audit and the external audit, because you're not going to disagree with yourself, right? So management has no saying with that, whether they can permit something or not. C, prohibited under SOX independence rule, and the answer is yes. If you are a publicly traded if you are auditing a public company, you cannot do any internal audit work for them. Once again, the only thing that's acceptable is tax with the approval of the audit committee. Remember, this is a list of things that you cannot do. Prohibited services, prohibited non-audit services. So the only thing is tax. Again, assumption is what? Assumption is it's approved by the audit committee. Permitted if immaterial, you cannot, materiality has no place here. So the answer is C. If you are using Farhat Lectures, you can go to farhat.ai next to you and ask it to explain the topic, explain the correct and incorrect answer a little bit more in depth, and the best is to create another MCQ similar to this one. What should you do now? If you're studying for the CPA exam or for anything else, the best investment you can make is invest in yourself. No one can take that from you. Don't shortchange yourself. Go to Farhat Lectures, look at additional resources, invest in yourself, and God bless.